Welcome to Something to Say, where we bring voices from diverse backgrounds who will share their unique stories and perspectives on finding their passion and provide insights on how you can find yours. Join us as host Greg DeShields guides us through this enlightening journey.
Welcome to Something to Say podcast, a unique platform that amplifies the voices of individuals from various backgrounds sharing their passions. I'm your host, Greg DeShields, and I'm pleased to bring you another episode. Thank you for joining us. And as your host, I'm pleased to welcome Felicia Williams, principal of HiTouch Enterprises. An event strategist with over 10 years of proven experience, she founded HiTouch Enterprises in February of 2016. It is a full-service event production and brand strategy firm based here in Philadelphia. Since its founding, Felicia has raised over $6 million for nonprofits and planned over 300 events, festivals, seminars, and youth programs. She's also the founder of GyngerTea, a holistic wellness brand. In addition to her professional career, Felicia works every day encouraging families, students, and other leaders to use their voices to advocate for quality education, to reduce gun violence, hold government agencies accountable, bring women full equity, and provide equal access to jobs and resources for minorities. She is the past chair of the Philadelphia Commission on Women and sits on the board of directors for Choose to Win and Center for Hope. She is the 2023 recipient of the Entrepreneur of the Year award that was presented by the African American Chamber of Commerce here in Philadelphia. She was also named as one of Philadelphia's most influential African Americans under 40 and someone who should be watched for future success by the Philadelphia Tribune. Yay, Felicia. She serves as a deacon at Salem Baptist Church under the leadership of Pastor Marshall Paul Hughes Mitchell. Felicia holds a BBA in marketing from Howard University, certification in content strategy from Northwestern University, and a master in adult and organizational development from Templeuniversity. She resides here in Philadelphia with her husband and 3 children. I'll tell you, she's going to tell us how she manages it all. And we're thrilled to have Felicia here on Something to Say. Welcome, 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 Felicia. I am so glad that you are able to join us today. And I have to say, in full disclosure, it is December 23rd, day before Christmas Eve. I'm sure we all have a lot more we can do. But thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate the opportunity.
Now, I'm really anxious to begin our conversation talking about events. And I guess you're fortunate to have a little bit of a break between events before they start to work their way up. But are you doing any particular events? No, you're off for a little while?
So December and January are slower for us, but we're still working because all of the events we do require months of planning. And so we do have some exciting events coming up in the spring, and our team is in full force working on those right now.
Wow, terrific. Well, once again, I hope they get a chance to have a nice holiday celebration. And like I said, I know you are an extremely busy person, networking with a lot of business leaders, as well as we know, producing amazing events. But most people, when we do our podcast interviews, want to get to know you a little bit better. So, to that degree, here at Something to Say, we have a few get to know you questions. It's just a way to share with the audience a little bit more of a perspective about you as a person. So, we're going to start with an icebreaker question, and then we'll get into some of the more heavy hitting questions. So, are you up for that?
I'm ready.
Awesome. All right, so the first one's hopefully a very easy one, and it is that holiday season. But what is your favorite childhood memory?
So my favorite childhood memory is summertime with my dad in between camp and school. So there's always like 1 or 2 weeks when you're not in camp and before school starts. My dad is an entrepreneur and he owns his own business. And so in order for my parents to save money, I would go to work with my dad for those 2 weeks. And those summers were amazing, like those 2 weeks, because one, we didn't have to wake up early. My dad is not an early riser, and so we wouldn't even get to the office until like 10 or 11. I had my own business cards. I had like little assignments to do, like folding mail and stuffing envelopes and using a copy machine. This is before all the emails, so I was on everything old school. And then for lunch, he would take me to Dave& and Buster's or Spaghetti Warehouse. It was amazing. I just remember like he would have the sunroof open, the windows down, the breeze is blowing. We lived uptown. So we would be cruising on the drive, going to work, going from work, listening to music, visiting his clients. It was an amazing time. Like, I think that's when I also fell in love with entrepreneurship.
Wow, I was just going to say, we can see it's definitely baked into your genes, and congratulations. I have to, in full disclosure, do a shout out to Spaghetti Warehouse. I don't know how many people remember it, but they had the best spaghetti there.
The best, the best, the best. The food there was amazing.
Oh man, oh man. And I guess, with the entrepreneurial spirit, this particular question, I'm anxious to hear how you may respond to it. What was the biggest failure you had, and what did you learn from that experience?
So the biggest failure I had, and again, this is about getting to know me. So what many people may not know is that there was a time where I wanted to be a high school math teacher. And I went through, I was actually going to go through Philadelphia Teaching Fellows. I actually got accepted into the Philadelphia Teaching Fellows program. And I quit my job at the time because the Philadelphia Teaching Fellows program was for the whole summer. And so I had to quit my job in order to, be a part of the program. And so over the summer, you would substitute teach in the Philadelphia Public School, and you would also take coursework to help you prepare for and pass your praxis exams, which are your state exams that you need to take in order to be a teacher. And so I was doing great. I passed the praxis one, I passed the praxis two. I'm doing really great in school. I'm teaching, and I also had to start interviewing with different high schools. I was made a job offer at one of the high schools that was on top of my list. And then I could not pass the third part of the praxis exam three. And you only had three times to take it. And I failed all three times by 1 point. And
Ah.
I don't know if it was the most devastating or if it really felt like a failure, but I mean, for me, it felt like a huge failure. But and I was depressed for a while after that, right? Like, was back at home living with my parents because I didn't have a job, because I quit my job to do this program. I just knew I was about to be a high school math teacher. And I felt like I was at my all-time bottom at that time. But what I learned out of it is that God has bigger plans for us. And a lot of times we're trying to push our way through the door that we want to go through, and He's trying to redirect us through another door that is meant for us to go through. And that's what was happening at the time. But in the moment, I couldn't see it. I didn't understand it. I just felt like a failure. But in hindsight, when I look back at it, I'm like, can you imagine me, high school math teacher right now?
It's interesting how you are able to get clarity of really what that experience meant to you as a person, how you evolved in your life. And so often when we ask that question, although maybe at the time or maybe even still today, it may feel like a failure, it has served in so many ways to make you better as who you are today. Certainly,
Mhm.
how tough times can be, but you also know what your capability is in order to rebound from that and move on to the future. And to that degree, I congratulate you because honestly, if you were teaching in a classroom, you and I would have never met, and there would be a lot of fantastic things that would have never happened. So we're glad
Yes.
that you didn't do that. But hey, listen, this particular question is very popular, and I was anxious to get your thoughts of it, especially now as I heard you talk about your dad and the fact that you guys like Spaghetti Warehouse. But anyway, if you could have dinner with any historical figure, who would that be and why?
It took me a while to really sit and think through it and, like, decide on a person, but for me as a Black entrepreneur woman, it would have been Madam C.J. Walker. I
That's
know
a
that the
great
times are
choice.
different. I know that the times are different, but there's still, like, a certain level of grit that is needed to be self-sufficient and self-sustaining, and I would have loved to sit and talk to her, about what some of her biggest failures were and how she learned from them and overcame them. Because even though we've read the story, you never get the full story unless you get it directly from the story.
Mhm.
And so I would have loved to get advice from her because, our ancestors have done so much and have laid the way, and I believe they worked 10 times harder than what we had to, right? There was no technology and everything back then, but a lot of the fundamental principles are still the same. So I would have loved to sit with her and share with her what I'm going through, what my take on things are, so she can like see it through, but she's gonna see it through a different lens, right? She's gonna see it through that lens of like grit and hard work. And I just know I would leave that conversation feeling 10 times more inspired to be successful
Right.
if I had that conversation with her.
And she also was a very innovative person. It's like if one door closed, she had no problem with moving to another door. And to your
Mhm.
point, I mean, her tenacity and her grit and her determination is something that is to be admired, given the obstacles that she probably faced. So, great choice. It's not often that,
Mhm.
I hear someone reflect upon an individual that really stands out in my mind, but that's a great choice. So that's a great segue. Why don't you tell us about your personal journey? How did you get from and to?
So tying it back to a few things that we've already covered, right? So first was my father and that early impression that he made on me being an entrepreneur and me being able to see firsthand. My mother worked at a mortgage company during my early childhood, and I don't know if you recall Take Your Daughter to Work Day or Take Your Child to Work Day. I think it really started off as Take Your Daughter to Work Day, right?
Right.
With women getting more into the workforce. And then it's like, oh, wait, what about the little boys? Then it became Take Your Child to Work Day. But I went to work with my mom all the time on Take Your Child to Work Day because I could go to work with my dad anytime.
Mhm.
But that particular day was when her company, or a lot of companies, would actually allow the children to come into the workplace. And I'm gonna be honest, I compared the two between, what it was like going to work with my dad and what it was like going to work with my mom. And I'm like, "Oh, I need to work for myself. I need to build my own. Like, I want to be the boss."
Mhm.
And the work my mom did was great, but it was just for me, it just was about a lifestyle that
Mhm.
I wanted to live, especially with my children. So, me and my mom have a closer relationship now, but I really credit us not having a closer relationship during my childhood because of her job. She worked over an hour away from the home, and she had to be to work by 7 a.m. And even though she got off at 3, she would get stuck in traffic and she wouldn't get home until 5, right? Whereas so my dad is the one that is, getting us ready for stuff. He's able to take off work or reschedule client appointments to make things that happen during the school day. And my mom did the best that she could. But I really looked at it like, wow, like when you have control over your own schedule, when you have that freedom to make your own schedule the way that you see fit, you can make it around your children's lives. And that was what was most important to me as someone who wanted to be a mother, as someone who wants to travel, as someone who wants to spend more time with friends and family. And so I really valued that. And so I always knew at an early age that I was going to have my own business at some point.
Wow.
Didn't know what I was going to do,
Mhm.
but when I came out of college, I actually was a licensed realtor. I'm like a jack of all trades, right? I was a licensed realtor in New York City. In New York City. And so I already had a job too. I like came out, had a job, and I graduated in 2008. And for those who remember what 2008 was like, it was the last one's hired were the first one's fired.
Mhm.
And while being a realtor, I had a lot of independence as a contractor. It was the mortgage bubble.
Mhm.
The economy was collapsing. And so, the summer before when I had first got my real estate license, I was closing deals and that was like all deals are at a hold. Like couldn't process anything, couldn't sell anything. Only thing I could do was rent and I couldn't live off the rental commission. And
Mhm.
so I ended up having to come back home. And then that's when I decided, I always had a passion for working with youth and I wanted to be the math teacher. That's how that came about. That was like a backup contingency plan because I
Right.
couldn't take the real estate market by storm. And when that door shut, I ended up taking a job in Washington, D.C. because I was like, if I can't have the job I want, let me live in the city I want to live in.
Mhm.
So I made my way to Washington, D.C. I went to Howard University, so I made my way back. I really loved living in D.C. college. So I said, let me go back. And I took a job as an executive assistant to the president and CEO at a nonprofit.
Mhm.
And it was my double worst product experience. If you've seen the movie,
Yes.
if you've seen the movie, it was truly the double worst product experience. I was in that position for almost a year, which apparently is like the longest that someone had been in that position before me. The turnover was crazy. Panic attacks, couldn't sleep at night. It was horrible. But I will say that that position prepared me for my next big position, which was executive assistant to the president and CEO of the Urban Affairs Coalition, to
Mhm.
Charmaine McLaughlin-Turner, who is a dear friend and mentor. And so going through the experience in DC, on my first day working with Charmaine, the first thing I asked her was, "How do you like your coffee or do you prefer tea?" And she looked at me, she didn't know, she didn't understand the question. She's
Hmm.
like, "I didn't hire you to get me coffee or tea. I hired you to do a job." And it was just like, "Oh, wow.
Wow.
Okay." And on my first day, she bought me lunch. Like she came, she was like, "I'm stopping to get lunch. Do you want something?" I'm like, "Yes." And that was foreign to me coming out of this double worst product
Uh,
experience where I actually wasn't just, someone like personal assistant or chauffeur, but I was actually, I was valued
mm,
for the work that I could contribute. And, she understood what my background was. I would have a BBA in marketing. And so whenever there was an opportunity to work on a project, she would ask, like, "Do you want to work on this?" And I'm like, "Oh, sure. Yeah." So, I started jumping at opportunities to work on different marketing projects, whether it was sending out the newsletter, working on a smaller event, which led to working on bigger events. And I was able to grow and develop under her mentorship and under the mentorship and support from my colleagues. It was a really great working environment. And that's kind of where High Touch was born because my biggest project at the Urban Affairs Coalition ended up being what's now the city of Philadelphia's largest breakfast networking event.
mhm.
Now it's at the convention center, over 1,000 people for breakfast the Friday before Thanksgiving. This year they've raised over $650,000. When I started, we were at the Crystal Tea Room with 300 people, raising $200,000.
Mhm.
And so I've been able to work on that event and help it grow over the years, from the production to providing support on the fundraising side, to the logistical support to elevate the experience and the type of individuals and network that is in the room. And so other organizations saw what I was doing at the Urban Affairs Coalition and approached me to say, "Hey, do you want to help? Do you want to work with us?" And the first opportunity I received while working at the Urban Affairs Coalition was actually with the African American Chamber of Commerce. The board chair at the time, Stephen Scott Bradley, they had just hired a new president. And, they're like, "We're going in a new direction and we need to have a signature fundraising. There's no reason we don't have a signature fundraising event. I see what you do at UAC." So at 5 o'clock, 5:30, I would be done my work at UAC and I would go home and immediately start working on their event.
Mm.
I was able to subcontract and hire a friend of mine who worked in the evening so that I could prep her to do stuff for me during the day while I was at my other job. And I built up a team of friends who were willing to work the day of the event. Like I coordinated everything. I used my vacation time to take off the 3 days leading up to the event so I could be fully focused on that event. And Charmaine came to the event. She experienced the event. The next day, I went back to work. She calls me into her office. And she gives me a hug and she congratulates me for because that event went from a little less than 200 people annually, a little less than $100,000 a year. To the first year we produced it, we raised $177,000 and we sold out at 3801 Market with over 400 attendees.
Wow.
And she congratulated me, and she also said that she was amazed that I was able to do that and still execute flawlessly at my job there.
Mm.
Like she couldn't like there was no indication that I was distracted by something else. And so she commended me on that. And a year later, when I decided that I wanted to, do high touch full time, she gave me her full support and blessing as long as I still worked on that signature. And so I went from I went from full-time employee at UAC to consultant, and I still work on that event to this day under High Touch, and they are all still very supportive of me and my professional endeavors. I consider everyone at UAC family. And I really always like to give Charmaine McLaughlin-Turner a shout out because she's one of few leaders that I know that is serious about passing the torch to the next
Mm,
generation and helping to cultivate and mentor the next generation of leadership, not just holding on to something, but pouring into us, sending us referrals and opportunities and giving us that advice. And I wanna do the same too.
wow. Well, that is an amazing journey, and I have to say you've had some great people along the way that you became connected to. And it is about relationships. You've got some great relationships and the continuity of them and how they connect. But more importantly, I think it's a strong testament to who you are and your work ethic and your focus on business and how you're able to maintain and know, how to leverage all of your resources in order to have the capacity to do more than one thing. So a big congratulations to you. That is a great story. And a big shout out to Stephen and
Mhm.
Charmaine, because I know them both and they're amazing people. And there's probably a bunch of other people based on what you've described that we know. So, but congratulations to you. But this
Thank
particular
you.
question I do want to ask you because a lot of leaders have some very poignant ways of looking at it. So, how big is your inner circle?
So let me first start with saying that for a long time, my friends used to tease me as Miss No New Friends. I was always very hesitant about making new friends, like always. So if anyone from the Philadelphia area remembers Ivy Leaf, I'm an Ivy Leafer. I know it's not there anymore, but one of few all Black private schools in the country. And so I went there from pre kindergarten all the way through eighth grade. I completed the program there. And so I still have friends from Ivy Leaf. Some of my closest friends, we went to the same high school, went to Philadelphia High School for Girls. And then from there, many of us went to HBCUs. Three of my closest friends from Girls High, I went to Howard University with. And so my closest circle is I would say it's 10 of us, all who went to Girls High, some added from Howard, because we kinda it's like we grew through so much that it's kept us together, and we all were very like-minded. So I was one of the few that was blessed to find friends who we were able to grow together,
Mm,
support each other on our different journeys, and all having, very, very similar wants and desires. And so, like, even in my closest circle of friends, many of us ended up having children and getting married all around the same time as well in our early 30s. And so our 20s, we were traveling and having fun, but we all were very focused on trying to achieve something as well. And so now though, as I get older, like my circles look different. So it's hard to say how many people are in my closest circle of friends because if I had to say who my best friend is, like right now today, and so like he's my right hand. He's like he's that person. But and outside of him in our household, as far as my closest girlfriends, I would say I have about four. But I'm trying to be mindful of diversifying my front row.
mhm,
I always know, they talk about the front row, like who's in your front row, who's your starting five.
mhm,
And it's good to have people that are loyal and supportive, but I'm trying to be intentional of putting, some advocates and mentors there.
mm,
And I'm trying to add to my circle of influence as far as individuals that I know are in positions where I want to be
mhm.
in the future, not just right now.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm looking to add some millionaires and billionaires to the circle. So if you know of any that that would be open to me to meeting and starting to build a relationship, I would love to have some millionaires and billionaires as friends in this circle. Not yet, but
Mm.
I'm open to it.
Well, I do know that there are a number of special events that venture capitals like to host. So somehow or another, we got to get you on that invite list, and then ultimately for you to be able to produce those events that give you that network. And I love the way that you describe your inner circle, but more importantly, using that phrase, the front row. That is something I haven't heard before, but I
Mhm.
love that concept because, to your point, there are certain people who you certainly want to kind of be there in one way or another for what they can do in your life where you are today and where you are in the future. But that inner circle is that group that's going to tell you, yes, you're moving in the right direction, or girl, you're crazy. So, but either way,
Yes.
it helps to really navigate you. And I guess that kind of takes me to the next question about who has had the most influence on your life?
The most influence on my life, that's easy. Although over my entire life would be my father.
I was gonna say,
And it's been my father. Daddy's girl from day one. My dad has always been there for me through everything. Super easy to talk to, has always listened to me, has been an excellent role model. Fast forward, I got married 5 years ago, and my father gave me away. He gave me away to a man that is absolutely amazing. Amazing in a different way from my father. And so present day, my husband has the most influence
mm,
on my life. And the way I describe his influence on me, and I describe it often when I always, think and celebrate him. Like, you've ever had a personal trainer?
mhm.
And there are just some days when you are like hating your trainer because they're like, no, you're going to run an extra half mile today. Like, what are you eating? Like, why are you doing this? Like, checking your bad habits. And but then, summertime coming, you got the summer body, and you were like, oh, I love my trainers. And so I say that because my husband, he's my biggest cheerleader. He's my biggest supporter. But he's my supporter in a way that he motivates me to do more, to be more. Like, he can see my potential in me even when I can't see it. He's always pushing me to be better. He's challenging the status quo. He's sending me
Mm,
things to listen to, things to read. He's constantly pouring into me because he wants me to be the best version of myself. And so a lot of the changes that people may have seen in me over the last
mm.
5 years were influenced by the relationship with my husband.
Wow. Well, big shout out to your husband. He sounds like an amazing guy. So this question also is one that has garnered a great deal of interest by our listeners. So, when was the best year of your life, and when was the worst year of your life?
So the best and the worst year of my life were the same year. The same, like, all happened within the same week. Well, maybe no, the whole year. The whole year. And that was giving birth to my firstborn. And so Emery Issa Rose was born 6 weeks before the COVID-19 shutdown, January 31st, 2020. And her my due date was actually February 17th.
Hmm,
So 4 weeks early, because I had developed preeclampsia.
hmm,
And the only way to cure preeclampsia is to deliver the child so that you can save both the mother and the child. And so at the time, my husband was in Texas on work and had to like take a red eye back. I went in, I had my labor was induced. My experience, which I'm not going to go into full detail, but it was a
hmm,
horrible experience. I labored for, almost 3 days. And when she was born, I really wanted to breastfeed, but I was encouraged by the nurses not to because her blood sugar was low and they wanted to give her formula.
hmm,
So then that was a whole nother experience, was weaning her off of formula to get her to get onto breast milk over 6 weeks. Because I was already operating HiTouch full time, I had plan A, B, and C in place. I had a team set up, I had project delegated, I had planned everything down to the T for every single event.
hmm.
I even planned my pregnancy, which I know could be absurd to people, but I'm like, okay, we don't get pregnant in this window. I can't have a baby during event season. And so I even planned to have a child like before the like to come before spring event season. I planned it. I had this plan down to the T.
Definition to be an event planner.
I thought about it. Even with my second one, I'm like, okay, again, it's like two windows. It's like two slow times during the year when you can have the baby. So you can have it at the like midsummer because we're really slow, like that second half of summer, like in the month of August. You got to be here before September, or it could be in the winter. So I had a plan. I had a plan. But what none of us had planned was COVID-19, and that went into full effect. Complete shutdown, 6 weeks postpartum. But what happened was, just a few days after I gave birth, my team is already like, these nothing is going as planned. Like, they did their best to manage it like as they could. But when you have events where you have large corporations that are sponsors, they have their ear to what's going on globally. And what was happening with COVID was already happening around the world before America decided to do something. And essentially, we had sponsors that were saying they weren't sending people because they didn't feel like it was going to be safe. And so that was definitely the worst year, but it was the best year because my daughter changed my life for the better. She has made me realize how important it is to be present for each moment, you know, to like, I've been the ultimate multitasker, right? You have to be. But with her, I realized that I have to stop and like look her in her eyes and talk to her, like, and appreciate every moment I have because every time I blink my eye, she's getting older, she's getting bigger, and I don't want to miss any of those moments. Realizing the influence that my parents had on my life and how I want to be a present parent, right? Like this is what I'm doing it for. I said I want to be an entrepreneur because I want to spend more time with my kids, and so I need to
Yeah.
do that. What happened was high touch. If you ever had to audit high touch, we would come back with a clean audit at any time because I'm really big on having a really good accountant. And so when COVID-19 relief started to come in for businesses, we were able to apply for and receive a lot of the relief because all of our books were in order. And I literally just called my accountant and he sent over whatever I needed to apply for funding, which I desperately needed because I had to lay off my team. And so they were able to collect unemployment. At the time, before they had changed the rules behind it, I couldn't collect unemployment as the business and, the savings were running low really fast because my husband had also temporarily been laid off from trucking. He was a contractor as well. And so things were getting really real fast. And so when the funding um, came out, we were able to take advantage of a lot of the funding needs for small businesses. I was able to finally hire back a virtual part-time assistant, and I was able to help a lot of my clients pivot to do virtual events during that time.
Well, I'm listening to you tell that story, and it's amazing that all happened like in 12 months. It's like that's the kind of story that you're like, oh my God, how intense could I absorb all of this happening to me at the same time? And it's funny, I remember how incredibly frustrating it was in the beginning of COVID. I was planning a conference and I had contracts and speakers and entertainment and sponsors and we were all thinking, oh, well, it'll just be a couple weeks and we'll just keep doing what we're doing. And then later you found out, no, it's not like that. So for the longest, we went through this idea that, oh, we'll just, we'll postpone it. And then we realized, no, at some point in time, we really have to cancel. And I remember for me, the hardest part was sending back all the money that you worked
Oh
to
my
get. And
gosh.
I would tell anybody in
Whew.
the event planning world, you think it's hard to collect money. It's hard to give money back after you were
Yeah.
elected. Oh my God. But listen, we should get to events. You and I could probably talk forever, and you are, without any doubt, a very inspiring and motivating individual to kind of hear your journey and your story. But I know there are a lot of people who want to hear what you have to say about the world of events. So, three questions I want to ask you. What are the most significant trends or developments that you see that are happening right now in events?
Technology is number one. Because if you are not using technology on your back end, you are not able to meet the demand that's out there more quickly than your competitors. And so when we talk about project management software, how to use AI, not just plugging something in, but knowing how to prompt it to produce templates, the whole entire technology piece. We even talk about like ad event software, right? So the mobile app technology, how you're engaging your audience through tech, the registration process, it's constantly changing. Like there are new things that are always coming up. And so you have to not only be able to want to adapt to new technology and be open to it, you also have to have a team
Hmm.
that is able to adapt
Mhm.
to it as well. My team will tell you there have been times where within the course of a year we've probably changed the platform two or three times because it's like we have to learn how to use this one now.
Mhm.
No, we need to know how to use that one if we want to remain competitive. So technology is definitely one. Two would be when we talk about like industry trends on events would be, oh, let's see, the actual program itself. right? And so everything, like, we're in the microwave generation. And so whereas, having a beautiful long program was amazing, like, right now people wanna get out. Give them what they need and let them get out. And you can do a more creative way where they don't even have to come in, do that as well.
Mm,
And so, even though people, like, we've gotten out of this COVID phase and people want to be out again, they don't wanna spend a lot of time in one place.
mm,
Long programs are just not it. They are not it. And if it's long, you better it needs to be long because it included a seated dinner, an open bar, and dancing. That needs to be the long part of it. No one wants a long program. So you'll see a lot of videos that are playing during events, right? As event producers, the power of video allows you to have control over your program because people go off script. You
mm.
know that people go up there, you tell them 2 minutes, they spoke for five. Now the program is going over because and I hate it. I absolutely hate it when people look at me to the side and they're like, Felicia told me I only had 2 minutes, but they do the but, and then they keep talking. I should have put you on video. I could edit the video and it's gonna be exactly what it was. But yeah, so like being very intentional about your programming. And then the third thing is speaking from like a fundraiser perspective is just being able to integrate quick payment options to collect on-site giving.
Mhm.
And so with Apple Pay and Google Pay now, I'm always telling my nonprofit clients, like if you want to raise more money at the event, it needs to be no more than 2 clicks for people to do it.
Mm,
If I scan it and I click it, I need to just hit one more button to pay, or
right,
you're gonna lose me. If I have to take out my credit card and start entering information, I'm not doing it. I'm
right.
I'm not doing it. And so, that those 2 clicks to pay, making sure that you can collect, on-site donations with Apple Pay, Google Pay, they have Cash App now, they have Venmo. However you can make it quick where someone already has their payment information saved on their phone through a particular platform, so they just do 2 clicks to pay or you're gonna lose them. So those are the 3 top
Wow.
trends that especially if you wanna break into a certain industry that you at least should know about.
Wow, so that's amazing. So without any doubt, embracing, the innovation and technology that's available to you today, without any doubt, make the program fit the audience. Brevity is good unless it has all the accoutrements that are enjoyable as opposed to boring. And then lastly, being very efficient in terms of how you're able to expedite access to payment. And I agree, that idea of like, if we can do it in 2 clicks, we're good to go. So I love that. I want to jump into some other questions. You've talked about technology, so I won't spend too much time on that. But I did want to know, as it relates to high touch, was there a defining moment either in the operation of that organization, or I would just say of your career experience that really served as the trajectory to say, "This is how I'm going to do business today."
Mhm. Yes, and so before COVID-19 in 2020, before the plans to have the babies
Mm,
happen, before I met the man, I had a really big client and we produced a free concert. It was a nonprofit. We produced a free concert on Penn's Landing. TI was the headliner. We had over 25,000 attendees. The event itself was phenomenal. The process to getting the event completed with the client was not phenomenal. And our client was amazing. But from the business side of things, there was a lot of things I did not know that I needed to learn. I did a lot of things based off of trust instead of having things in writing,
mm,
right? One of the biggest mistakes that I always made was being okay being paid less. And so when, my team showing up is going to be essential to the event happening or not, right? So, all the logistical planning, the stage management, like everything that my company does is keeping the show going.
mm,
But I was always okay being paid late. And I had to learn the hard way through that event because there were a lot of things that were left unpaid, including myself, and it put my company in a financial hole where I had to lay people off on my team. And I still haven't recouped a lot of those funds to this day. And it's like, but our work is done, right? The event was great, everything was executed, but we never received full payment. And so that was a big turning point for how I did business as far as contracting, deposits, the final payments being due, making sure I always had like a line of credit that was accessible, but assessing, talking with my accountant about even when to tap into that line of credit, right? Because the first reaction is, okay, somebody's paying me late. I'm just going to draw down my line of credit until they pay me. But what happens when they don't pay you? You still have to pay this line back. And so that experience and that event really shaped how we do business on the back end. When COVID happened, that was just different, right? That was nothing anyone could really prepare for. But remember, I said I had great bookkeeping. Like, because I learned that 2 years earlier, I was prepared for 2020. And since 2021, post COVID, our business has been growing at about a 60% growth rate each year over the last 3 years because of what I learned from that experience.
Wow. Well, congratulations to you on it. And I can certainly
Mhm.
speak from experience that in the world of what you do, so often it is about what the consumer sees, but on the back end, being thrusted into accounts, receivables, and to be the person to really emphasize pay on this day while you're still trying to plan this incredibly beautiful event is a different way of looking at, the work that you're doing because, you kind of believe that you've negotiated a contract. I provide you service, you'll pay me, right? Instead of me having to go out and get money from you that you owe me. So
Mhm.
I can certainly appreciate that. But I do know that you have certainly done more than just the work that you've done in high touch. So do you plan to launch any new projects or new businesses in the upcoming year?
So, in addition to High Touch, I also own Ginger Tea, where I hand blend a lot of organic tea blends to help with different health ailments. That's another story for another day, another podcast episode about ginger tea. So the Ginger Tea House is partially open right now. And the reason I say partially is because High Touch, we've actually launched a charter service. And so I've been putting a lot of my time and energy into helping my husband get that line of our business going. So we have, for those who aren't familiar with charter service, Black Car Service. We provide luxury, and I want to emphasize luxury transportation, plush pillows, snacks upon request, beverages, heated seats, the whole nine, chauffeur, very professional, that will get you from any point between here in New York and then down to DC. And so that kicked off in August. And by the end of next year, we plan to have 3 additional vehicles in our fleet. And so we're growing that rapidly, and we're really, really excited about that. And then what's going to be next that no one knows, so you get the inside exclusive, is we are HiTouch Enterprises is launching a content series to help entrepreneurs and business owners in their journey. I realize that there's a lot that I can share, but also I love to learn from other people as well. I am not that I'm going to just do it my way and see what happens first. And I want to see what worked, what didn't work, how I can do it, how I can do it better. And I know that there are other people that appreciate that information, like myself. And so we're going to be doing short video content series called Hustle and Heart,
Right?
and that will be coming out in 2025.
Wow. Congratulations. Well, when you're ready to launch, let me know. We'll put an episode of it on something to say because it definitely is the kind of content that many of our listeners would like to learn. You have family and you have these businesses. I mean, what does a typical day really look like for Felicia?
Ooh. So I'm going to do like a Monday through Friday typical day.
Huh?
So for the listeners out there, I've referenced my children. I actually have three. I have a bonus daughter. I have a 4 year who's 11. I have a 4 year old and I have a 2 year old. And so it's a lot of juggling that happens. And so typical day, I like to wake up at 5:30 so that I can have time to meditate, deep breathe, stretch, and get to the gym by 6:15. I recently started running back in March and I've kept up with it. I'm so proud of myself. I actually was diagnosed with Wolff-Parkinson's-White syndrome, which is a heart defect. And so up until about 6 years ago, it was really hard for me to run. And so I get back home, taking a shower, I'm making breakfast, packing lunch, I getting kids, helping kids get dressed, changing diapers. All of this is happening right between 5:30 and 9 o'clock because I'm dropping my 4-year-old off at school by 9, sometimes a little after 9, but they don't say nothing. So thank God for that. So we're doing all of this. Like, I feel like I've already had a full day before my day even starts. By 5 o'clock, like I'm closing my computer because I need to pick my baby up from school by 6. So 7:30 after bath time and dinner, I'm probably going to sleep too. And my friends are like, "How are you sleep by 8 o'clock?" I'm like, "You have not experienced my day."
Well, they now know
Um,
what your day is like, though. They'll have a
yes.
greater appreciation of it.
But then there's some days when I have no choice because I have to meet a deadline, and after I put them to sleep, come 8 o'clock, I'm back on my computer for like another 2 hours, and then I do it all over again. And so that's a typical day. But when we talk about event season, it just looks different. And so that's when I have to lean into my village a lot.
So listen, we have been here for quite some time and you have shared so much insight. And like I said, it is December 23rd. So I want to be mindful of your time. So as we kind of approach the end of our podcast, we are entitled Something to Say. And what we always like to include in our podcasts at the end is for those that we interview. So what do you have to say?
I I'm gonna be blunt. And this is really for my generation, and I wanna say really the generations maybe younger than me, but you may say, "Hey, it's for all of us." I wanna encourage people to stop being lazy. I wanna encourage people to stop being lazy. And when I say that, people have really, like, just leaned into technology so much that they are not doing the real work anymore. ChatGPT, AI, I love it, right? But people are so lazy with it, right? It's like, oh, I'm just gonna put this in and whatever it is, and copy and paste. Oh, I don't have to just go to the event. I can watch it on TV. I can watch church on TV. Oh, I can just do this on my phone. We are missing out on life. We are not really living up to our fullest potential, living our lives on social media by not doing the real work. It's I've really just come to the conclusion there's laziness. And I everyone want everyone to reevaluate their lives to see how they could be better, what they could do differently, and how they can elevate themselves, how they can pour into themselves, and really stop using excuses and look in the mirror and say, I'm not going to be lazy today. I'm going to work. I'm going to work hard for what I want, whether it is working for the luxury to travel, the luxury to have time off, or working for that next promotion, working for more money, whatever it is, to stop being lazy.
Well, I have to admit, your being so frank can certainly be a motivation and inspiration to those who are questioning themselves. And I think that that level of insight has, without any doubt, been curated as we listen to your story. There's so much intent on your part. There's so much focus on your part that really allows for individuals to see that it is important to live in that moment and certainly take that moment and put it to the best that it can be for you. And those are the kind of perspectives of passion that we like to hear when we do a podcast for something to say. So, Felicia, it has absolutely been a pleasure speaking with you today. I definitely want to have you come back and tell us part two about the luxury travel part, because that sounds, I do want to do one of the fam rides or something, but that's another story.
Yes, yeah, we do wine tours. We do the whole nine.
Well, your passion and your insights are without any doubt very informative and inspiring to our audiences. It has been a pleasure to interview you, and thank you so much.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
And listeners, that's a wrap for this episode of Something to Say podcast. Stay tuned for more inspiring conversations with voices of individuals from diverse backgrounds sharing their passion. So until next time, this is Greg DeShields signing off.
Thank you for tuning in to Something to Say. We trust you found some valuable insights and takeaways that can help you find your passion. Don't miss out on future episodes. Please subscribe, rate and review us on your preferred platform. We value your feedback and suggestions, so let us know how we can serve you better. Keep the conversation going and stay inspired until we meet again. Take care and happy listening.